dude.
Come on. Do you really think I would do that on Facebook Live? Come on. No.
You had me fooled for a second.
You guys are like, dude, we're live.
I know.
He's picking a winner. Speaking of picking a winner, I picked the winner for today. Welcome back, Stage 2, the Stages Podcast. Here we are with my good buddy J.B. Hager in the air streaming studio in Aspen, Colorado. Here we go. Let's roll this.
All right, enjoy.
I don't know what to say. I'm super happy that I got this victory today, and it was an incredible start in Germany. So many people, and for me, it would be wrong to say that I had no expectation or no pressure. It all comes out now, and I really wanted to have this win, and it was for me a big goal to start in Germany and win at the end of that stage.
Can you take us through the final moments, the final 500 meters of an impressive sprint?
Yeah, well, if we are honest and look to the plan, it didn't work at all. So the good thing was I came pretty late. I could jump from the wheels, and Matteo from us was on the left, and Saba brought me somewhere till 500 meters, and then I just thought, okay, I need to take it, I need to take my own way, and I was just jumping from wheel to wheel, going through small gaps, and in the end I could go straight to the front, and I'm super relieved.
Well, welcome back to the Stages Podcast. That was Marcel Kittel, our winner today, winner of Stage 2.
And you predicted it.
And I predicted it. I've not been right on a lot of these things, but I had that one. I thought just, well, like I said yesterday, and he sort of confirmed it there in that post-race interview, that for a Belgian team to win in their home country is a big deal. Big for the sponsors, big for the team. There's even talk that there's a new sponsor coming on board at Quick Step, so it helps all of those things. The thing that struck me, though, is his emotion. Like when you saw, and you could hear it in his voice there too, but when you saw him just after the finish, this was like a guy who had never won a stage in the Tour de France. Turns out he's won 10 of them.
I know.
I'm like,
if you didn't
maybe
see
10
it,
is his favorite. I don't like, so emotional.
Yeah, if you didn't see Kittel afterward, and boy, you could relate to it. The chaos, the people swarming you, and it looks like he's sitting on a curb on the edge of the street, just trying to gather his emotions, breaking down in tears.
Yep.
And you were like doing this mental check of history. You were like, is this his first stage? No way.
Right.
And he's won all those stages. We can only guess why that was so emotional.
Right. That's right. And we would be guessing because we don't know. But look, guys have, whether what he alluded to or said, he started in Germany, big deal. Belgian team, Belgian finish, big deal. Those all add up. I don't know. Maybe you could have been thinking about somebody that he lost recently. Just these guys have reasons for motivation and inspiration that we don't know. They don't tell us. But I tell you what, watching that sprint, I don't know how those guys do it. Going so fast, so tight. It's just like, no. I wonder if they're scared. They got to be scared. I'm scared watching.
See, that's what I wondered. It's like, do the really good sprinters, and there's just a handful of them, you can almost always predict from a few guys, they must just have this X factor. Like when they talk about baseball players, they can see a baseball moving slower. Having the patience to, like Kittel said, weaving through that from wheel to wheel. And not going too soon and blowing up. Right. I don't know how they do it.
He found the right wheels, as he said, and you could see, and we'll get into it in a minute when we talk about Taylor Phinney, but they weren't organized. That train, the Quick Step train, they didn't get it together. And he just, when that happens and you lose, your four-man train, and they know exactly in what order they're supposed to go in, you got to find your wheels, and he did it, and And a special shout out too to Cavendish. I thought Mark Cavendish, for a guy who's been off the bike and out of racing for quite a while because of this glandular fever or Epstein's bar or whatever it was, to get fourth. Talk about a guy that found the wheels.
Yeah, mind blowing to watch them sprint, and it's pretty remarkable But you, a career of bike racing, says, I don't know how they do it, and they must be scared. That just says a lot about that specific skill set.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was, to me, it just looks, and if I think back to my 30 years in cycling, you know, I've watched the sprints, even if when you're in the Tour, you don't see the angle that we saw, that we see as fans watching on TV, but you go back to the room and Eurosport does the replay, so then you're laying in bed watching it. So I've watched that angle for 30 years. They just get faster and faster. I don't know if, I don't want to say that the guys are necessarily, obviously they're a little faster because, you know, everybody gets faster over time, but the bikes are faster, the wheels are faster. And, you know, that bunch was all the way across the road, and I'm thinking, I call, when I'm sitting there, guys, like, somebody's going down here, right? It just looked like, hairy. And fortunately, you know, they didn't. And by the way, not only did I pick the winner, but JB, you were sort of a winner, because the big topic today was old school barriers. And there was so much talk about barriers. We even saw, which we didn't see yesterday during the coverage, but the Luke Durbridge crash that was captured by a fan on the side of the road with his cell phone. You talk about a nasty crash. I mean, Valverde looked bad. Burbridge, like, speaking of barriers, he put the barriers into the next town. He hit him so hard.
It looked like he was cruising in on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I mean, it just.
And he was coming in hot, as they say.
But we touched on that quite a bit yesterday, and now it's become a hot topic because it's the difference between sliding and getting up and being out. Like Valverde with a broken kneecap is you just get sick thinking about it.
Yep. You imagine that? I mean, I told you, it's like, I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to get the hammer. And I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to hit you on the kneecap as hard. Like, that's truly getting kneecapped. He got kneecapped.
Yeah.
And the question for him becomes, obviously we have the overall bigger question about the Tour and that effect on Quintana. We talked about that yesterday. I think that's a huge impact on that team. But for a guy who's, you know, not a young rider anymore, they've already said the season is finished, how he comes back from a broken kneecap at his age, you know, at the the last years of his career.
All right, let's hear from Froome at the end of the stage, and we'll go into. He had a lot of drama, and you're going to hear about some of the drama he went through to stay in the race. Here he is, our, what would you call him? The highest ranked GC contender at this time.
By a long ways.
Chris, let's start at the beginning. Tell us about the crash and then about your injuries.
No injuries, thankfully. Just lost a little bit of skin on my backside. I think that's the nature of the race. I mean, we knew it's slippery conditions like that. Every time you put the race numbers on, you know there's a big risk something could happen. And today there's just a touch of wheels, or someone slid just a few wheels ahead of me. Those speeds, you just can't avoid it. So I think a few of us went down, but thankfully everyone's okay and got to finish all right without losing any time to our rivals. So that's the main thing.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, thanks everyone.
Man, the guy did everything right.
Yeah, we talked about it either in the preview show or yesterday. I mean, it's so important to stay up front, right? Your lifelong lesson that you've always been taught is stay at the front. Crashes happen in the middle and in the back. Stay in the front, avoid the crashes. Where was he? At the front. Well, it just shows you that crashes do happen at the front. That was, obviously the conditions were slick.
What was that, about 20K from the finish? For those who didn't see it, I'm trying to describe it. He was in the right place. The third
20 miles.
And there were two guys up on a break, and the third guy of the whole group goes down on a wet corner.
Right. So again, and we talked about traffic control yesterday. So what, in Europe especially, the way they've developed their roads and built their roads to control traffic is, instead of a four-way stop or a red light or green light, you have a roundabout. So, but that's not the only thing. So you get around the roundabout. We can get into roundabouts later, because I thought we saw some interesting things that could come into play later in the race about roundabouts and which side you choose to go on. I mean, it sounds stupid. I went on the left and went on the right. Well, if that road after the roundabout comes out a little bit more to the right, you got to go to the right. It's shorter. But nonetheless, this is the way it is in Europe, and we talked about street furniture and roundabouts, but I think the biggest issue is coming out of the roundabout. Then they have the island, so the guys they get around the roundabout, they see the island. It happened to Contador last year too. He hit the island. and then he, high-sided. But this just looked like a slippery corner. One thing and I want to give a special shout out to Dylan Casey for sending me some notes yesterday after listening to Stage 1's podcast. And I completely forgot about or neglected to remember this, is most of the cars in the Caravan and in the Tour are diesel. Here in the United States, our cars are unleaded. We drive, you never see anybody with a diesel car or hear a diesel car. All of those cars, almost all of them, are diesel. And diesel is a different fuel. So if it's leaking out of a car onto the road, there's more oil in diesel. It's going to be more slippery. And so, anyways, clearly, I don't know if it was Thiago Machado or somebody, his teammate behind him, they just lost the front wheel. And as we said yesterday, when that front wheel goes, just pick your landing spot. You're going down.
What was interesting, and tell me if it was an issue or not, this is just my take on it. Froome goes down. He's banged up. And he only had a couple of team members drop back to pull him back in. Like, when you go down, you're rattled. Doesn't it take a while to get your senses back and to settle down? And chasing the group is not fun.
Well, when you have a couple things happen. When you have a big crash like that, where you have dozens of riders that go down, typically, unless it was in the last 5 miles of the race, typically that group, otherwise known as a peloton, waits. And while I don't think there was they were spread out across the road waiting, they definitely weren't going. They didn't hit the gas. So I think, to me, Froome appeared relaxed. I mean, he had 2 or 3 teammates with him. There was nobody seemed like they were panicking. They were in the cars, which is what they do, what they should do to get back on. By the way, that too is sketchy when it's pouring rain and you're sitting on the bumper. No thanks.
Weaving in and out of cars.
Yeah. To me it was, I wouldn't say that he had no teammates. I think they knew right where they were. They knew they were going to get back. And then he made the bike change. So I was like, and then the next thing he gets back to the peloton, and then he's got his hand up coming back to get what appeared to be his spare bike. Maybe the first bike wasn't. He might have taken the first bike from a teammate. Saddle height's too high, position totally different, not his spare bike.
And we saw it. He banged his hip pretty good. You don't just fall down without banging something when you go down that quickly.
We just heard from Chris Froome, and he was, he was pretty nonchalant and not worried about the crash. The only thing, I think, the hour after, I think it's too early to know, and not that there may be nothing. I mean, it could be completely unaffected. By the way, when it's wet and slippery and you slide, your bike slides out. That's a problem. But you too slide. Sliding is better. You want to slide versus get punched. And so he might have just lost some skin. But to me, it's just you never want to hit the deck. Maybe that right hip. Let's just say, for example, your right hip. If you take a blow there, there's a bruise, there's a contusion, there's road rash. You can't sleep on that side, right? Maybe it's just a little off, and so it affects your pedal style, and maybe you have a little more strength. Then maybe your left knee starts to flare. There's no crash ever that does not have any impact on the rider. There's always going to be something.
Yeah. Anyone listening, just fall down without putting your hands down. And see if you don't have a weird day.
Yeah, just have your friend. This is what I always like to say, because sometimes you hit the ground at 30 miles an hour, and people are like, "What's that like?" I was like, "Let's just go down Main Street here, right? I'll get it up to 30.
Jump out.
No, put your bike clothes on and jump out of the car.
No way.
That's what it feels like.
I've jumped off a boat at 30 miles an hour, and that hurt in the water.
Well,
obviously.
Don't tell anybody that ever again.
Painful. It's painful. So we assume Froome's going to be okay. Yep. Team's still intact, in good shape.
Okay, but it's just worth noting.
Not fun. But there was, maybe that was a weird gap between the crash and a 2-man breakaway up front that almost stayed.
Right. Well, it started as a 4-man breakaway.
Right.
And at that time, it was still a 4-man. It didn't didn't get down to 2 guys until Taylor Phinney won that final sprint over the last KOM of the day. Then what he did is he just kept going, and then Alfredo went with him. So then it went from 4 to 2.
And it was interesting watching it with you as I've always been amazed as a Tour fan over the years, and I think most people are like, how do they always time it out and nip those guys at the line? It's almost like with the breakaway is in sight and the finish line is in sight, and here they come. Yeah. And you were breaking it down by seconds.
It's a perfect science. It just, they never stay away. They just don't, unless something. Look, when that crash happened and 20 plus guys go down, that disrupted their plan. That disrupted the chase, right? The chase by the peloton. So they were able to get another 30-second cushion. It doesn't matter. In their minds, the teams that are chasing, they've got it all worked out, right? They know if they're just riding steady and there's two guys, that's 10 seconds a kilometer. And if they need to close it quicker, they can. And by the way, too, even if somebody got to the last kilometer, right, we just talked about the finish. We talked about how fast they're going. If you get to the last K, even with 20 seconds, you can't go. The two guys can't go that fast. This wave behind you is going so fast. So you almost need, they would have needed a minute with, I'm going to say 4K to go. I mean, it's just, in the fan at home is going, oh my God, 4K, 2.5 miles. They got a minute.
They're going to stay.
They got
all
it.
excited.
He's got it.
Right.
All the moms and pops of the world are going, yeah, no. When that thing gets rolling behind you, you just can't hold it off. Unless something happens. If a crash happens back there, then that's the X factor that lets you stay away.
There's something else interesting at play when you have a breakaway up front.
Yep.
A breakaway up front, and break this down for all of us. Having a breakaway helps control the peloton a little bit. It's not a threat. Like, had they reeled them in too early, the next group of guys that are fresh are blasting off the front, right? And then you got a new problem.
Yeah. So if later on in the race, you'll see this a lot. In fact, I'll get to that in a second. But if you're if you're leading the race, you want a breakaway away. If you're one of the sprint teams that's trying to control the race for your sprinter, you want a break to be away. You want a 4-man break at 2 minutes. They're not going anywhere. They're coming back, and so then you now have 192 guys or whatever back in the peloton. Well, they're not going to attack. The worst thing for a team, the yellow jersey team or a sprint team trying to control it, the worst thing for them is to have what they say, in a grupo compacto, right? So the pack together, because then everybody in the group's going, I got a shot. Bam, up the right, bam, up the left, up the middle, just bing, 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 attacks everywhere. And then that team is trying to control is like, shit, we got to get this thing under control. So what you do is you just sort of selectively say, okay, you let one go, maybe another guy jumps to him, and you just let them sit out there, and then you just let them get deeper and deeper and farther away. And next thing you know, you got a breakaway. And then everybody sits back and it's like, okay, let's just sit on the wheel and wait for them to be brought back. And what I alluded to a second ago is later on in the race, you're going to have, Chris Froome's going to, whoever it is in the yellow jersey is going to have a lot of time on a lot of guys. Well, those boys, you just let go. If somebody's an hour down, you let them have 20 minutes, and they can win by 20 minutes. The layperson at home go, oh my God, he won by 20 minutes. He must be winning. And not even close to winning.
Right.
So you let those, in those days, that's when those breakaways are successful. Because, and we're going to talk about it, this is going to happen 2 or 3 times in this tour. But you just let those go. Unless the only other reason that they wouldn't go is there is some team that hasn't won a stage that has to reel back that breakaway. Pressure from the director, pressure from the sponsor, pressure from whatever. Got to get a stage win. Stage finish might suit a particular rider on the team. They will ride to try to win the stage, and then that break doesn't go away.
While we're talking about them getting caught, everybody, is trying to. They're like, "Where's the Americans?" That's been a big story, and Taylor Finney's getting a lot of TV time.
Yep. What
did today mean besides that? Was there any more? He did walk away with a polka dot jersey for a day. Is it just like, hey, I'm here. It's an amazing recovery. It's good for sponsors. Is it any more than that, or is he one to watch for the next 3 weeks?
Well, he's clearly enjoying his time at the Tour de France, which he should. He's never done the Tour. I'm sure that, obviously he grew up wanting to do the Tour. He was surrounded by the Tour. And I think I love seeing that, whether or not, obviously, he's not going to have the polka dot jersey in Paris. He's not going to be an overall, but he's impacting the race, right? And that's what, I can tell you, for the French fan at home watching this thing, he's getting a lot of fans, right? And not just French fans, all over the world. I mean, the toughness, the panache he's showing, and just mixing it up. I mean, when I flipped it on this morning, I saw Taylor in the break. I thought, damn, okay.
You were happy to see that.
Yeah, I mean, he easily could have. He had a good result in the prologue. He could have just chilled in the group, and I was asleep when the break went, so I don't know exactly how he got in it, but you know, that's a person that woke up and said, I'm gonna get in the move today.
You know, on Taylor, if you're his director, what do you say? Keep doing what you're doing, kid, or do you say, settle down? We got a long road ahead of us.
I mean, the only bit of caution I would say is first tour. An effort like today is not easy. I mean, that's especially, you know, those last 20K when he was just with Alfredo. You know, they were in the today. Finally, NBC had a great graphic where you'd have the main bunch going 52 kilometers an hour, and the two-man break going 51. I mean, to go 51 at the end of a 200-kilometer stage ain't easy. And so he's going to feel that tomorrow. And tomorrow's a lumpy day. We're going to get into tomorrow, but tomorrow is not an easy day.
You know, something else I've learned as a tour fan, and I'm learning a lot of new stuff talking to you every day, and we're only 2 days into it, plus the preview. But you mentioned when they're outside of France, the big crowds. And, you know, when they were still in Germany, which they were most of the day, I'm taking notice of this. Usually on a long sprint stage like that, you don't see crowds unless you're in a city. It went people, I mean, 3-4 people deep the whole time. But what I noticed, I wouldn't have put those flags just when you want to see how windy it is. They always show a shot of the flags, and they were sideways
When they're standing up. Yeah.
But so for that sprint stage, for most of it, you had a nice barrier, so they're not having to.
Yeah, just thank all those. If you're riding, just go by and say thank you. Just thank you, because I don't. Otherwise, I'm in the gutter potentially. But I thought the interesting thing too is it shows the nature of people. When you got to that hectic sprint finish in Liège, and when the barriers start, right? Your favorite thing, the barriers. There are no people. People don't. They want to be. They don't want to be held back, right? So you had all those people along the way, and then you get to the part where the barriers are.
Yeah, they'd rather watch in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. They want to stand in the road. If I can't get in the road, take a selfie with my poodle, I'm not going to the finish and doing. I'm not going to be held back.
That's a lot of fun. Cavendish, who is, like he's mentioned earlier, maybe he's on the mend. He's looking pretty healthy, but he said something so funny today. We all kind of laughed about it.
Yep.
They were grabbing him for an interview. He's a big story. Is he healthy? He looked pretty healthy today, but in that interview he said, I have a better shot of winning being here instead of at home. I love his attitude. Like, it's logic.
That's so simple. It's brilliant, right? It's just like, no shit, Dick Tracy. But that's Cav. Cav, he's got some good ones, man. He's a street guy, so you know, that's exactly the way he's got beautiful wife, beautiful babies. He don't want to be at home. He wants to be out there fighting.
I want to bring up one more thing, and then we'll talk about tomorrow's stage.
Yep.
It's mind-blowing when you really start paying attention to it, how many people want to create a controversy that may or may not be there. And after
I can't imagine. I have no idea what you're talking about.
And after the opening time trial, now it comes out that the Sky jerseys were illegal. Was Froome's jersey illegal?
Right. Here's the headline. So here's my friends at Velo News, not the headline that they chose to run with this AFP article was Froome under fire over cheating jersey. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about his choice to not start in yellow, his choice to ride the Sky Castelli kit that I talked about, the patches. You know, so that's the headline. Clickbait. Right, so he nowhere in the article. There's nobody in this article that says
you can really confirm anything.
Nobody says that was a cheating jersey. So that was the headline chosen. Right. So that's I opened it. You opened. Everybody's going to open that. That's. I think that's chicken shit. I think that's chicken shit. But it gets to the point where, you have a team like FDJ, Francis de Joux, run by Marc Madiot, one of the biggest whiners in the world, and the trainer of the team, Frederic Grappa, talking about how basically just accusing Chris Froome and all of Sky of cheating. He didn't say that headline, but he said, that the jersey was illegal because it had been, altered.
Mm-hmm. If you didn't see it in the opening stage, it looked like it had some pads under it that may change aerodynamics, whatever. But and it's so different now with
Grappa says I just want to be clear. The trainer for FDJ, this Frederic Grappa, said that they gained 18 to 25 seconds because of this particular skin suit.
How do you know from watching?
Well, that's a whole nother hour podcast if you try to break down what Mark Matteo and Frederic Grappa, want to choose to whine about. We'd be here all day.
I'm no expert, but if you're not innovating on the little things, you're not trying hard enough. Or otherwise everybody be wearing heavy wool jerseys.
Grappa says the rule is very clear. Any aerodynamic addition to the jersey is banned. Sky have clearly infringed. So that rule came to be. I remember in the day when people were taking camelbacks, right? You know what a camelback, and filling it up with maximum water and either putting it on their back to create almost like a foil, or even on their chest to kind of close in this frontal area when you're in the aero position, close all that in. So that's when they came along and said, but this is so different than somebody creating a whole nother part of your body, right?
Or a fairing or something like
Yeah.
that. So you think it's just a bunch of crap. It's getting people to click on it. But in today's modern world of, fast scanning through social media, people see the headline, the story has no merit, and they just sort of take the headline with me. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the jerseys were illegal. How many people just walk away with that without really doing...
Nicholas Portal says, the director of Sky, says everything is legal and the equipment was validated by the race commission.
See. But nobody reads that part.
Well, right. Okay. Enough.
That's frustrating. Okay.
It'll be, well, you know what? If Chris Froome wears yellow on the last, if he's in yellow on the last time trial, and he loses 2 minutes in the time trial, in a yellow jersey that was provided by the Tour, well, then we can say that the Castelli Sky kit was truly illegal. But that's not going to happen. You could have given Chris Froome a 2-2 yesterday, and he'd have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm. You said that the first couple of days would be a factor with the weather, and that's absolutely what's been telling the story. It dried up for the sprint today, and it looks good for tomorrow. What do you think? What's your take on tomorrow? What to look for? What to expect?
So I think overall, first of all, we go through 3 countries, which, you're going to have a Belgian start. You go through Luxembourg all the way until we get into France. It's going to be just like it's been. It's going to be super crowded. I'm not a meteorologist, but I think the roads are going to be dry all day and even sunny. A fairly long day, 212 kilometers. That's not with the neutral, so that's 100 and, oh God, been too long since I've done this, 130 plus miles. The neutral's another 4 or 5. And then that part of the world, right, from Belgium through Luxembourg into France, is the best way I can describe it is lumpy. If you look at the profile, I mean, it's just there are no mountains on this profile, but this day
is bumpy, as you said.
Well, I said lumpy, but
Lumpy, bumpy?
you can call it bumpy,
Okay.
but it's just never flat.
Mm-hmm.
It's never flat. It's up and down all day long, and then the kicker is this right here. This is the most. So the last 5 kilometers of this race are tricky, right? And the thing I see is
Tricky right, left, or up, down?
all of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. But the tricky thing is that you basically have an uphill finish in the long wheel. And the last kilometer is 6%. But before that, there's pitches of 11. But what I look at is I go all the way out to 5K from the finish, and look what you got. 1K straight downhill fast with 5K to go with corners at the bottom. So as you start to look at, I mean, you can see if you look online, you can see the finish, the run-in. I mean, it is super technical.
And so the teams, tell us what the directors are saying. So they're...
Well, here's what everybody's thinking tomorrow morning. How much is Peter Sagan going to win by?
Really?
There is nobody in this bike race that stands a chance to beat him tomorrow, unless he's not there.
Because it's technical.
And it's up,
Down, and technical.
Look at me, I'm getting all cocky because I predicted the winner today.
Hey,
but
go with it.
Look, I think the finish tomorrow is too hard for the Greipels and the Kittles and the Cavs and the Buhanis and those other guys who are up there today. I think it's too hard. I think they can be well positioned, but I think those pitches of 10, 11% at not 400 meters, but for 1.6 kilometers, that's a full mile. I just think they get dropped, and I think I think Sagan is just sitting here going, I got this.
All right, he's the one to watch tomorrow. But when it's technical, it's harder for them to line up the train. Is that part of it?
Well, that's always hard to line up the train. That's always a problem. So I suspect what's gonna happen 5K out with that downhill is like any downhill. It's just single file. And so with single file, imagine if it is single file going down the hill, and then you have a flat piece, and then straight into the kicker up to the hill. If you're 40 back and it's single file, well, for the GC guys, there's going to be gaps so they have to stay up front because you can't get stuck behind some guy that's getting gapped off. Then you have to either close the gap or you lose time. So for the GC guys, heads up all day long, got to be at the front all the way, as if you're going for the stage win tomorrow. Cannot get gapped off, right? Especially guys like Contador and Port and Bardet. These guys that have already lost time, they get gapped off tomorrow. That's just hit number 2 in 3 days. So got to stay up front, and then then the guys who are going for the win, if you're not Sagan, then good luck. But perfect finish for him.
Pretty exciting today. We don't really have time to get into the comments. We'll do that tomorrow, if that's all right. I love going through your comments on Facebook. Everybody there, that's great stuff.
I just want to give a special shout out to the guy that reminded me on Twitter that Trenton is 20. I made some comment yesterday, like, I raced with this dude. He says, by the way, he's 27 years old, which means that he's 20 years younger than me. I did not race with this dude, but I know I raced with one dude named Trenton. So, my bad. I've been out of it. I don't know the players. I don't know shit about the sport. I'm just trying to catch up. So, my bad.
Okay. We will take your comments via email, stages@wedosport.com. It's WEDU sport.com.
Did you hear that, Dave Lettieri? Lettieri, Dave, my old mechanic and great friend from Santa Barbara, Fast Track Bicycles, he emailed me yesterday. He's like,
oh, I know Dave.
Yeah, your email's messed up. We do WEDO sport. Doesn't work. I said, I know, because it's WEDU.
And send your friends to subscribe, or if you're not subscribing to the podcast, stagespodcast.com. And I say that's weird. If you're not subscribing, you might be listening to it. We have people just watching on Facebook Live.
Yeah, keep saying that. If you're not listening, then you're weird. No. That's not a good. That's not. Anyways.
All right. Join us tomorrow after stage 3, the bumpy lumpy stage, the technical finish, and watch for Sagan. You say.
I bet a lot of money. But you wouldn't even make money. The odds would be there's so much in his favor. You'd make it like $1.
There you go.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.